Hey, everybody. Are you still with us? This is Taryn,
And Emily.
the Canopy Customer Training Team. Are you feeling like an insights expert? Let's keep flexing those knowledge muscles and take a look at another one of our favorite features, workflow. We talked earlier about moving from paper to digital and the benefits of being able to access your firm's information in real time. That's not just true of Insights. It's true of all of Canopy's different features, including workflow. Canopy's workflow module will let you improve efficiency by doing things like creating templates, assigning tasks in bulk, building automations, everything you need to free up more of your time. Then it's just wash, rinse, repeat. It also lets you enhance accuracy. It's easy to forget, miss a notification, make mistakes. Canopy Workflow is built to resolve these issues, so your human error rate goes way, way down. You can even go further with workflow automation. Reduce the mental load that goes into managing your firm's workflow by automating tasks and subtasks. Automation also decreases human error and delay, particularly in busy seasons when it may seem hard to keep your head above water. I don't know about you, but data entry isn't exactly my idea of a good time. Gone are the days of spending hours on mind-numbing, repetitive administrative work when you know your time would be better used elsewhere. Let's follow the path to workflow efficiency and learn how to make Canopy Workflow work for you. Use your brain power where it's really needed and not where it's not. You could think of Canopy Workflow as a project management tool, except that doesn't even begin to cover the scope of what workflow can do. This isn't your average project management system. Workflow takes a firm's processes and makes them better, stronger, faster, more efficient, more consistent. Workflow also gives you firm-wide visibility, so you can instantly know exactly what each team member is working on and where they are in the process. No more, I thought you were working on that. Know exactly who is assigned each piece of work, what's been finished, and what's still outstanding. No matter how small or large your firm is, organizing, managing, and executing projects poorly can cause frustration, cost you time, and even impact your reputation. What a nightmare! Canopy's workflow module helps you manage your projects, processes, and productivity so that your firm can do more work with less effort and turn those nightmares into sweet dreams. For the first step of our Canopy workflow journey, we're going to learn what a task is. Workflow is all about tasks. You're probably thinking, but Taryn, I already know what a task is, and I bet you're right. A task is just a piece of work, a thing that needs doing. Getting more specific, you can think of it like a project. Tasks can be linked to a client, like monthly bookkeeping, tax prep, audits, scanning documents, whatever work you need to do. Of course, tasks don't only have to be linked to a client. They can also be administrative work for your firm. Things like file organization, budgeting and forecasting, payroll. The list goes on and on. If there is a piece of work you want to track in Canopy for any member of your practice, it can be a task.
When you're ready to create a task, all you need to do in Canopy is click the blue plus button in the global navigation bar. In the secondary menu that pops out, just click the Create Task button at the very top of the list. It's the big blue check mark. Once you click the Create Task button, Canopy will open the task creation pane so you can get started.
Now, before you dive right into creating your first task, you should pause and think about your processes. Canopy should work around your firm's processes, not the other way around. As we just discovered, a task is simply something that needs doing. You could go 0 to 100 and wildly create tasks without considering your existing processes, swerving around hairpin turns and blind corners. But should you? No way. Pump the brakes, Speed Racer. If your processes outside of Canopy are not where you want them to be, setting up a workflow in Canopy really won't help. There are a lot of steps and coordination that need to happen around every single project your team may handle. Let's look at a specific example. Maybe you need to create a workflow for processing 1040s during tax season. Ultimately, Emily just needs to file a return. Simple. Oh, but for there to be a return to file, we probably had a bunch of client documents that would need to be scanned and organized by Evan. And Evan wouldn't have been able to organize documents that he didn't have, so he would need to wait for Mallory to actually gather said documents. For Emily to even have a return to file, Taryn would have needed to prepare the return, and Taryn could only do that once Evan organized those documents. We'd also need Nikki to invoice our client before Emily can file the return. And Kyle would need to get the client's e-signature before Nikki could do that. We also want to make sure that before Emily files anything, she's reviewing that return that Taryn processed. Confused yet? So am I. That wasn't just running in circles. It was running in a maze. It was messy and confusing, even with just one 1040 to worry about. Now imagine that you and your team are juggling 50 returns all at once. That's way scarier than a Minotaur. It just goes to show that even for projects that are your firm's bread and butter, you still have to sit down and strategically map out your process to make sure every piece is moving when you need it to, where you need it to. Once you've got a plan, then you can start building your workflows. Processing our 1040 return has a lot of individual steps, but once we know what order we want to do them in and who needs to do each of them, we can confidently set up a workflow to meet our firm's needs, making it easy to track all of that work in Canopy in the most strategic and efficient way. By thinking about who does what and when, every person knows when to come in because every step is clearly defined. Every person knows what is expected of them and when, so that they can all successfully deliver on each step of the project. Canopy Workflow can take our now organized process to the next level. By telling Canopy exactly what your process is, Workflow can do the heavy lifting for you by keeping that process in one trackable place for everyone involved. Taking advantage of workflow automations lightens that load even further, allowing Canopy to automatically let your key players know what's expected of them and when, and to provide status updates when adjustments need to be made, like, say, requesting an extension on a return. Workflow automations can even pass each team member the proverbial baton when it's exactly the right time for them to jump into the race. All right, now that we have a plan in mind, moving our organized steps for processing 1040s into Canopy, let's get back into the good stuff, understanding the anatomy of a task. As you build a task, you'll notice quite a few fields that you can fill out with relevant information. Most of these should feel pretty self-explanatory to you, and that's by design. We want task creation to be simple and straightforward, rather than becoming a project in and of itself. Here are the basics. The task name helps categorize and define the work that's being done. Keep it simple so everyone on your team understands the task at a glance. The status lets everyone know exactly what's going on with the work being done. Is this task not started? Is it in progress? Is it on hold for some reason? You can use Canopy's default statuses to keep everyone in the loop. And you can even create custom statuses if you want to get more specific. Statuses also let Canopy perform some really cool actions automatically, but we'll take a closer look at that in a little bit. The client is who we're doing the work for. The assignee is the person doing the work at any given time. Priorities allow everyone at your firm to understand the level of urgency of a task. Each task has a description, which allows you to add any context that your team members might need to get this work done. And here's a quick best practice. Does your firm use Canopy's time and billing module? If you do, you can even add budgeted hours to your task. This lets everyone know exactly how much time they should be spending on each of their assigned responsibilities, and also lets you see how well your firm is doing in real time.
Okay, now that we understand the basic components of a task, let's start building out the workflow for our 1040. First, we'll give it a name. Like we mentioned earlier, let's keep it clear and simple. Because we're going to process a 1040 return, let's call it 1040 return. Easy peasy. Next will be our client. We're doing this work for our client Cora, so we'll select her here. Now we can choose our assignee. Because we're currently building out our parent task, or the overarching project, more on that later, wink wink, it would make sense to make the assignee whoever is in charge of the overarching work. Other people might come in to help for the various steps, but who's the big cheese for this project? In this case, it's me, so I'm going to select myself. Priority is easy. How urgent is this work? High, medium, and low will probably mean slightly different things for different firms, so it's up to you to determine the best fit for your firm. In our case, this is a medium priority task. Last, let's add a description. Like we just learned, this is where we can add in any context that our team might need. This will make the difference between confusion and confidence and keeps everyone on the same page about expectations. Here's another best practice for you. You can actually add clickable links directly into task descriptions. We love linking to .gov websites outlining whatever we're working on. How's that for going to the source?
That looks great so far. Of course, those basic fields aren't the only things we can add to a task as we go. Let's dive deeper into the anatomy of a task to take a look at the rest of the options for customizing a task to meet our firm's needs. We all know what a date is. Workflow lets you add a start date and a due date to your task by default. But you can also create custom dates as needed, like a filing date, extension date. The world is your oyster. Do you do the same work over and over for a client on a schedule? Maybe something like monthly bookkeeping. Recurring tasks repeat following the rules you set as often as needed. The tax preparation fields are default fields in Canopy that let you associate a task with a specific tax year and return type for easier filtering. Use the reminders option to send notifications to your team members so tasks don't slip through the cracks. While the main task we're creating is the parent task, we can also create subtasks. You can think of the parent task as a project and the subtasks as the individual steps that make up that project. You could also think of the parent task as the seminal NSYNC album No Strings Attached, with timeless hits like Bye 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 and It's Gonna Be Me as the subtasks.
All right, now we've got the lay of the land. So let's finish getting our 1040 tasks set up. First, let's add a due date so that our team knows when this work needs to be finished. In this case, we want our due date to be 2 weeks after the task is set to in progress. Remember when we mentioned that statuses let Canopy do some things for you automatically? This is one of them. If we choose relative date and enter 2 weeks after status change event, 1040 return, in progress, and then click add relative date, when I set the status of the 1040 return task to in progress to let everyone know we're getting to work, Canopy will automatically generate a due date for us 2 weeks from now. Thanks, Canopy. Now we can start adding our subtasks, or the individual steps that make up our firm's process for 1040 returns. When you click add a subtask, you might feel a little bit like you're stuck in a time loop, seeing all of the same fields and options you were just looking at. Don't worry, you're not trapped with Punxsutawney Phil. Subtasks just have the same fields and options as tasks. This makes it really simple to set up your subtasks, since you're already an expert on the parent task level. For our first subtask, we're going to look at the first step on our list. We need to gather any missing information and documents, so let's call our first subtask Gather Client Documents. Now we can choose the assignee. Remember, the assignee is the person who this chunk of the work belongs to. In our case, gathering documents and information is Mallory's responsibility, so we'll pick Mallory as the assignee and click Done. Let's add a due date for this first subtask. We need Mallory to request any information and documents within 24 hours, so we'll set a due date using the relative date option. For this subtask, we'll choose 1 day after our parent task is set to in progress. Perfect. Now, as soon as I set the 1040 task to in progress, Canopy will generate a due date for our first subtask, keeping Mallory on track. For the second step in our process, scan and organize documents, we'll create a second subtask. We'll give it an appropriate name, Scan and Organize Documents, and pick the assignee, in this case, Evan, and then we're all set. Now all we need to do is keep going down our list of steps and setting up subtasks to match. This is one of the reasons it's so important to nail down your firm's processes outside of Canopy first. Having that list of steps to go off of makes setting this workflow up super easy for us. Once we have subtasks for all of our steps, we can save our work by clicking Create and Manage, and just like that, we're done. And with just a little bit of TV magic, like when they pull a fully cooked, beautifully golden turkey out of the oven on a cooking show, here is our completed 1040 return task, with a subtask for each of the steps of our process. Wow. Now, while it may feel like setting up your workflows can be a pretty big investment of time up front, you'll see a return on that investment long term. No system should be a magic wand. It will always take some time to set up something new, but once it's set up correctly, you'll reap the rewards exponentially.
You might notice that there's also a spot to add an automation when you're creating a task. What is an automation? They can sound complex, but really, automation is simple. When you do something manually, an automation triggers Canopy to do something automatically. You can apply automation rules to tasks, subtasks, and client requests, choosing from a variety of different conditions to automatically trigger specific customized actions. Automations let the workflow robots do all of the boring stuff so that you and your team can save time, streamline your processes, and focus on the work that actually needs your attention.
Let's look at a basic automation for now. How about having Canopy automatically record a start date for this 1040 return when I tell the system it's in progress? If we move to the Automations tab and click Add Automation, we can do that. This will give us a pop-up to create our automation by choosing the condition and the action.
Remember, when we do something manually, Canopy is going to do something automatically. The condition is the thing we do manually, and the action is the thing Canopy does automatically.
In this case, the condition will be when the task has status of in progress, and the action will be then record the date with the date type start date. Once we click the blue Add Automation button, we're done. We just created our first automation. I think we all deserve a Schrute buck. And don't worry, we'll take a much more in-depth look at other automations in just a few minutes if you're curious to learn more. Once you start setting up tasks in Canopy, you might wonder what happens if you need to do the same piece of work for multiple clients. What if I process 1040 returns for a bunch of my clients? Do I need to build that 1040 task from scratch every single time? Wouldn't that just negate the whole point of using workflow in the first place?
Fantastic news. That's what task templates are for. So let's level up. A task template is exactly what it sounds like. A preset format for a task that you can apply as needed. Task templates save you time by letting you do the work once. After you set up your template, you can use it to create that task over and over as many times as you need to. Task templates also ensure consistency in the work happening at your firm. No more, oh, Emily does things her own special way. Get things done the same way every time with the same level of accuracy, no matter who owns the task. Cough, cough, Emily. Canopy even has pre-built task templates for you to use, either as is or as a jumping off point, duplicating them and then customizing them to meet your firm's specific needs. So when should you use a one-off task and when should you use a template? This may be different for every firm, but it should also be pretty intuitive. If the work you're doing is unique, something you're only likely doing once, you can create a one-off task instead of using a template. One-off tasks are great for things like spur-of-the-moment administrative work or things that fall into your lap that won't necessarily need a workflow that you can quickly repeat in the future. Task templates work best for work that happens repeatedly at your firm, things that you do over and over for a variety of clients. Is it something you'll be doing more than once and that you want to do the same way every time? A task template will be your best friend in those scenarios.
Here's a best practice for you. Have you ever used the client list to perform a bulk action? Did you know that bulk tasks are an option? Using a task template in combination with a bulk task allows you to create the same task for as many of your clients as you need to, all at once. Talk about a time saver.
Now, we touched on automations earlier, but that barely scratched the surface of what Canopy can do. Remember when we looked at statuses and assignees when we set up our 1040 task? Let's talk about how we can use them in conjunction with automations to take the micromanagement out of your workflow. One thing that can be tricky when assigning work is making sure each member of your team knows exactly when to actually come in and do the work. With most tasks, person D can't start until person C is done with their piece, and person C can't start until person B is done, and B can't start until A has completed their portion. Instead of expecting your team to proactively determine if work is ready for them, which can throw off your timeline or even allow things to slip through the cracks. Let's have Canopy tell everyone when it's their turn to start working on this project using an automation.
In this case, we're going to do what we like to call waterfalling, so that every member of the team can know at a glance when something is actually ready for them, based on the status of their assigned subtask. We call this waterfalling because the system is going to look for each subtask to have a status of completed before it marks the next subtask as ready, and so on and so forth, all the way through the task, or down the waterfall. The longer your list of subtasks, the taller your waterfall. Now, there's something important to keep in mind when you're ready to start building an automation. You need to build the automation where the triggered action is going to happen. If we want to have something happen automatically to the parent task, we'll build the automation on the parent task's automation tab. If we want to have something automatically happen on a subtask, we'll build the automation directly on that subtask. In this case, we'll start by having the system automatically tell Mallory when she can jump in and start with the subtask Gather Client Documents. Since the action's happening to the subtask, that's where we'll build the automation. We can start by clicking on the subtask to expand it. And from here, we can click the Add Automation button. We'll now have the option to set our condition, the thing we're doing manually, and our action, the thing that is happening automatically. If we expand the Select Condition dropdown, we're going to see lots of options. Automations can be triggered by all sorts of things, like statuses being updated or specific dates being approached. In this case, we need to decide when to have the system automatically update our subtask status. Let's say we want Mallory to start gathering documents once the parent task is set to in progress. Our condition, or what needs to happen manually, will be when the task has status of. It is important to keep in mind that anytime the word task is used, Canopy is talking about the parent task, not one of the subtasks. That's why we're choosing when the task has status of. Then we can choose our relevant status, in progress. Now it's time for our action, or the thing Canopy does automatically. Because we want Mallory to be able to see at a glance that the work is ready for her to start, we'll select Then Set the Subtask Status and the status Ready. Now we can click Add Automation, and just like that, we created the first automation in our automation waterfall. If we look for the lightning bolt icon under this subtask, we can actually see exactly what's going to happen. When the parent task has status of in progress, then set status to ready. Having the automation clearly laid out and readily accessible means that there won't be any surprises, and our team can easily know what to expect as they work on their subtasks. Our next subtask is Organize Scan Income Documents. Because it's not possible to organize and scan documents that we don't have yet, it makes sense to only set this subtask as ready once Gather Client Documents is completed. Let's set that up as the next piece of our waterfall. First, click on Add Automation under Organize Scan Income Documents. Then for our condition, we'll choose when the previous subtask or client request has status of, and select Completed as the status. For our action, we'll select Then Set the Subtask Status to Ready. We'll continue by setting up that same automation for all of our subtasks all the way down the rest of the task. When the previous subtask is completed, set the next subtask as ready. Boom! In just a few minutes, we were able to tell the system to let each of our employees know when their specific step is ready for them, based on the previous step being complete. No more clicking into tasks to try to figure out what's been done. Instead, our team members can simply filter their My Work tab on the task list to show them when their assigned work is ready to be started. That's pretty cool. We love an automation that lets us focus on our actual work instead of on hunting down the members of our team to make sure they know what to be working on. Now that we know how to have Canopy tell each member of our team when it's their turn to work on a project, what other kinds of things can we do with automation? Maybe this type of return might need an extension. Let's add a couple of automations to make this process a little bit smoother if it does happen. We can automatically update the parent task's status with custom statuses if we want to. In this case, I want the parent task's status to be updated if an extension is requested, so that everyone can tell what's happening with this return at a glance. To do this, first we need a custom status for the system to use. All we need to do to add one is click on the Status button and then click Add Custom Status. Let's create an extension requested status. Now we're ready to add our automation to the parent task. Let's click over to the Automation tab and click Add Automation. Our condition will be when a specific subtask has status of, with the eFile return subtask, and our new extension requested status. Our action will be then set the task status and the extension requested status. What this means is that when someone sets the status of the eFile return subtask to extension requested, the parent task will also show the extension requested status, keeping our team informed and up to date. We can also have Canopy automatically record an extension date for us. First, we do need an extension date field in the system. This isn't a standard date in Canopy, but we can quickly and easily add it as a custom date. At the very top of our parent task, all we have to do is click Add a Date and type whatever we want in the Add Custom Date type field. In this case, extension date. And then click the plus button. We can close the pop-up since we're not manually adding a date. Now we can add our automation by clicking the Add Automation button again. Our condition will be when the task has status of, and our custom extension requested status, then record the date, extension date. Amazing! Now if someone sets the status of the eFile return subtask to extension requested, Canopy will update the parent task status and record an extension date for us automatically. Now, what if we want to make it even easier for the relevant people to know when an extension has been requested? Let's add one last automation to send our team a notification. All we need to do is click the Add Automation button one more time. In this case, our condition will be when the task has status of, extension requested, and our action will be then send team member notification. We can choose which team members to notify, like all of the team members assigned to the task, or to the client, or just specific people, whatever is best for our firm. We're on fire! We just added 3 unique automations to our task. Now, if the return needs an extension, the relevant team member can simply update the eFile return subtask by changing its status. Canopy will automatically record the extension date, update the parent task status, and notify the relevant team members. Thanks, workflow robots!
Now that we built out our 1040 task and added all of those awesome automations, bringing us to the end of our journey, do you want to see what a finished workflow looks like in action? I know I do.
Since I'm the assignee on the parent task, all I need to do to kick off the work on this return for the whole team is to update the parent task status. When I'm ready for everyone to get to work, I can click on the status and change it to In Progress, and we'll see our automations start triggering. Our start date will be recorded, and the assignee for our first subtask, Mallory, will be able to see in her list of work that it's time to gather documents for this return. When Mallory tells Canopy that her subtask is complete, we'll see the next subtask mark itself as ready so that the next assignee knows to start organizing any documents. When that's marked as complete, the next person will see their subtask is ready, and so on and so forth. If we get to the eFile return subtask, and that team member tells Canopy that an extension is needed, we'll see our other automations come into play. Updating the parent task status, recording the extension date, and sending out those notifications to our team. Everyone is on the same page with the information they need to get their jobs done, and plenty of clear communication about the status of this return. I'm sure you can see just how helpful automations can be once you have them in place in your tasks and task templates. Just like so many other parts of workflow, automations are incredibly flexible and can be customized in so many unique ways to help you and your team focus on the important stuff instead of on the mundane minutia.
All right. Now we've seen just what Canopy's workflow module can do. We showed you how you can use workflow to improve your firm's efficiency, lower human error rates, and ensure consistency, and how to take it even further with automation in combination with tasks and task templates. Now it's up to you to take the baton and run with it. It's time to take a good hard look at your firm's processes, see what you want to improve, and then set up the workflows that will set your team free to focus on what really matters. Remember, workflow is here to work for you.